Kelly, and thank you, Victor, for that wonderful welcome. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to gather this morning on the unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam First Nations, and something that is obviously important to this gathering to always keep in mind, that relationship that we have to traditional peoples and to First Nations. Well, I'm just delighted to be able to have the privilege of welcoming you to what I think is a very important gathering to focus on issues around Indigenous research ethics, around the goal of working better together across different cultures. I want to thank Kelly, and I want to thank the iPinch team. You know, we have this wonderful research enterprise. iPinch, it stands for Intellectual Property Issues and Cultural Heritage, that has global reach, but very much is endeavoring to exemplify, I think, the values that are being explored and hopefully, as a result of this conference, will be pursued around achieving a better relationship and a better ethical framework for research that engages Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous peoples. And I think this conference is important as much as the topic of Indigenous research is itself important, but it's important because it engages a much larger project and a much larger enterprise, the enterprise of reconciliation, the enterprise of trying to find a way forward for Canada and for other countries in which Indigenous peoples can achieve their full potential, can be supported, can be respected, in which we can overcome some of the sad legacies of the past. And I know I don't need to review for people in this room how Canada has a very sorry history in respect of its treatment of Indigenous peoples, whether it was exclusion from the franchise, exclusion from culture, exclusion from land, the abuse that occurred in residential schools, the denial of opportunity within universities. All of these things have contributed to a legacy that will not easily be overcome, and a legacy which we as a country and as a society have a responsibility to address, not just in conferences of this kind, as important as they are, but in what we do every day in all of our pursuits. And I must say, I believe that universities bear a special responsibility in this regard. As institutions that help to build human capacity, that institutions that help to promulgate knowledge, not just to students within the university, but to the broader community. We have a very important responsibility and duty to discharge in trying to support that reconciliation, to trying to work with Aboriginal communities and First Nations to help build that capacity and help them to achieve their potential in ways that are respectful of their own traditions and speak to their own aspirations. This is not an easy challenge for universities because of their own cultural and ideological makeups and backgrounds. You know, we think of universities often using the metaphor of the ivory tower, set apart from society. And many people in universities have enjoyed the privilege of their positions because of their assertion of knowledge based upon disciplines that are rooted in European and liberal traditions that try to exert privilege over other traditions and other knowledge. And if we are going to break out of that mindset and overcome that way of thinking, it requires academics and university administrators and those of us who work within universities to challenge ourselves and to change ourselves if we are to engage on the journey that this conference asks us and challenges us to engage on. I suggest not just in respect of research ethics, but in respect of everything we do. Now, at Simon Fraser University, I think we have made some steps in this regard. But it's a long journey, and I don't want to pretend they're anything but very tentative steps. But we did, a few years ago, embrace a new vision for the university as an engaged university. And within that broader vision, we try to map out an alternative vision to that of traditional universities that hopefully will guide us, but hopefully maybe provide a bit of a beacon to others. The idea was of a university that engages with all communities on a basis of mutual respect, on an understanding that the university is not the sole repository of knowledge, and that universities have an obligation to work with communities, but also to listen to communities and to gain from that relationship. Within that vision, we acknowledged a special obligation, a special principle of respect for Aboriginal peoples and cultures, recognizing that the relationship with Indigenous peoples does require special attention, special effort, special energy because of the history and because it, perhaps more than any other relationship, challenges universities to transform themselves in order to achieve the goals that I believe we ought to achieve together. And in that regard, we've also taken some tentative first steps. We have adopted an Aboriginal strategic plan. We have now thankfully, an elders program which is providing support to our students and helping to educate the university on Indigenous traditions. We have, thanks to efforts of our faculty, established an Indigenous Research Institute. And before the vision even, we have had projects like iPitch, which have walked the walk in showing there is a different way for universities and university researchers to conduct themselves. And I think, Victor, the story you gave is such a horrible but nonetheless compelling example of what unfortunately is not an isolated example of university practices, viewing the community and Indigenous peoples as subjects of research rather than partners in research, viewing universities as somehow providing benefit by coming down from the mountaintop in order to engage with communities, and particularly with Indigenous communities, rather than seeing this as a huge privilege and opportunities for universities to work together on projects of empowerment for Indigenous peoples, of gaining knowledge for Aboriginal and university researchers. We've launched another project which I'm very proud of because I think it exemplifies that same principle, and that's the Hakai Network on the coast of British Columbia, in which researchers and graduate students are working with First Nations peoples to develop eco-based management principles. And these are principles that will hopefully guide the management of that region in a way that is respectful of the environment, also respectful of the need for the communities, the First Nation communities, to have economic self-sufficiency, but also is respectful of Indigenous traditions and customs. And you know what really excites me about that project is when I talk to the students and the faculty and they come back and they tell me how much they have gained from the relationship. Of course, I'm excited that First Nations communities are benefiting, but I'm as excited about the fact that there's a growing recognition that we in universities have so much to learn by listening to and working with First Nations people, by attending to traditional knowledge and culture, by showing that we can participate on a basis of mutual respect and understanding as equals, in which we have much to benefit from that relationship and hopefully have much to give as well. We recently have launched an executive MBA program. I think it's the first in the world, it's certainly the first in Canada, that tries to bring business knowledge to bear to the relationship between First Nations and other Indigenous peoples and the broader society. And that program I'm very proud of and pleased that it too is trying to draw in a principle of mutuality in learning and in education. So those are just a few general reflections. Now, the challenge for this conference, I know, is to focus very much on the research enterprise. And I think the research enterprise, for reasons that Victor has well illustrated and hopefully I have helped to explain, is, I think, an area which is very much in need of this attention. And the work that you do here, I think, is going to be very important, hopefully to those of you in this room, but even more so, I would say, to others outside this room. And I'm very pleased that the findings here are going to be shared more broadly with others across this country, and hopefully will help to inspire a change within universities so that universities do move further down this path of reconciliation, of mutuality. Kelly, I think, referred a little bit to the heart I'm reminded of a saying, and I forget who said it, but it seems to me it's appropriate in the circumstances. Someone once said the longest journey in one's life is the journey from one's head to one's heart. And in a sense, that is the journey that you are embarked on and engaged in here. Not that we don't need to engage our heads, but we need to understand that our heads have to follow what our heart knows is right. And our hearts have to inform what we do with our heads and the way we conduct ourselves. So I'm inspired and privileged to be able to help to open this conference. I'm saddened. One of the challenges of being a university president is you don't get to do the things that are important. You get to do the things you have to do. But hopefully it's important that at least this conference has the support of the university. I certainly will be looking forward to hearing of the results of your deliberations. I do want to again reiterate my appreciation to Kelly, to the iPinch team, and all those who have made this conference possible. I want to thank you for being here. And I won't try to embarrass anyone by pointing them out, but I know we have within this room some people who have made amazing contributions in Indigenous research and in walking the walk that I think is so important. I'm heartened that we have also in this room elders and others who come from communities who can bring the knowledge and expertise of Indigenous communities and Indigenous peoples into this discussion, so that we ensure that this conference not only examines the issue of how we can better work together, but it exemplifies the practices of how Indigenous peoples and universities can better work together on the research enterprise, but on all of our activities and all of our enterprise. Whoops. So with that, let me thank you again for being here. I hope some of you can stay a little longer because the weather is supposed to improve over the weekend, and Vancouver can be very nice in the sunshine. And work-life balance is also important. But yeah, I should talk, I know. But I do want to just wish you well with the conference and thank you again for your being here and for your contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for being here and for also sharing those words that really, in my mind, demonstrate that you're a visionary leader who leads from the heart, and that SFU of all the institutions stands a chance because of that.